Chickity check, ticky ticky remix. All right, we are rolling with another episode of Industry Interviews. I am your host and good buddy Dan Brown Jr., creative director and composer of the Emmy-nominated CrimeSonics, and I am joined by senior director of music production at BMG, my man Brad Marrapodi. How you doing, dude?
Good. How you doing, Dan? Congratulations on your Emmy nominations.
Hey, thanks, buddy. I actually threw my back out last night, so I'm sitting in the studio with one of those, what is it, like a TINS unit, that zaps you?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, life-changing device.
Really? I have to look into that.
You've not tried this? Oh, my.
I've not.
My gosh, dude, it's like having a little electronic masseuse all day.
Okay.
But you got to be careful because, either way. All right, to the fun stuff. Dude, how's the family, man?
Everybody's good. It's being quarantined in the house for the better part of 2 months with 2 young kids is tough.
I love it.
But, we're making do. We're making our best. Everybody's healthy, so that's something to be thankful for. How about you? How's your family?
My wife, she, in addition to helping with all of our, production and metadata, she also works in pain management.
Right.
So she still goes to work
Wow.
on the daily and is around people and is, wearing a hazmat suit or something,
Wow.
And then our son, he's doing online school. I'm glad they didn't just cancel it, so he's doing online. But we moved to a new facility, and now there's a studio behind our house. It's a separate building, and it's like business as usual while I'm in here.
That's great.
It's like the world hasn't even changed,
Yeah. That's what a lot of composers that I've been speaking to is, they're saying like we were already living this solitary life, so not a lot has changed for us.
Yeah, it's like, what are you guys talking about? Okay, so I want to jump into your career, stuff that you've worked on, awards you have won. Like everything, all things, Brad.
Sure.
Before we get to that stuff, let me back up a little bit. You're an East Coast guy, right?
Yeah, from New York originally.
Yeah. So tell me about that. You're in New York. Do you go to school in New York? What's going on?
Yeah, I grew up in New York. I went to school there. I kind of got interested in music early. Elementary school band, playing clarinet, which is super cool.
Oh yeah, man, it's a rock star.
Yeah, totally. And at some point, I wanted to play guitar.
Sure.
And so my parents got me a guitar, but they said only if you will take guitar lessons. So I started learning guitar, and then as I was in high school, I played in jazz bands, and I kind of started to think about music as a career.
Yeah.
And in fact, a friend of mine told me, I think he said his aunt would pull the music for that happens during like the news, and I was like, that is the coolest job I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Which now we know is like a music supervisor, right? That's what she would do. And so I started researching places where you could kind of have a career in that sort of field, music and media together. And I found a few schools that offered that. This is, 1999 that I started looking, probably. And so Berklee College of Music was one. And so I wanted to go into Berklee College of Music to study film scoring.
Oh, how cool is that? And Berkeley has like locations and campuses all around, yeah, like West Coast and East Coast, or
they have Boston, which is where I went, and at the time that was really, I think, the only location. Now they have a campus, I think, in Valencia, Spain, and yeah, they're expanding. Even in Boston, they're expanding, and there's a great LA alumni chapter out here that really helps each other out. So it was a great experience going to Berklee.
Yeah, and do they offer online programs as well too, or
they
no?
do? They offer online. It seems pretty popular. I get a lot of emails about it, and they offer a lot of really interesting courses online as well. On music production, the stuff that they offer there on campus.
I've had professors from Azusa Pacific on, professors from Full Sail University on, and like it's kind of split down the middle. Some people, they have to be in the classroom, they have to have that tactile experience, and others, do just fine and thrive online. I'm part of the latter group. I did everything online, both degrees, and I just loved it.
That's great. Yeah, I think I'm more of a in the classroom sort of guy.
Yeah.
Any of the online stuff that I've done when I was actually at Berkeley. You do some like kind of general education stuff. You can do online,
Yeah.
and it was a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
Just you really have to have a lot of dedication to do that. And I think at that time I was in college already, and if I did it today, I think I'd have a little bit more dedication.
Yeah. I just remember sitting at the coffee shops for years on this laptop, dude. And I tell you what, for anyone who's currently in school or thinking about going to school, I won't project this on you, but be prepared to gain some weight. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, you know. So, okay, so you're in school, East Coast. Talk to me. You graduate, then what happens?
Literally packed up and drove out to LA 2 weeks later.
Like, how did you decide? Like, okay, that's where I'm going.
I knew, I mean, probably halfway through school that's what I was going to do. I mean, when you pursue a career in film scoring, film music, anything in that field, you know that LA is kind of the epicenter, at least to get started. So I had another friend of mine who was also really interested in moving to LA. We knew a couple people here from school, previous years, and we just packed up. We drove cross country and made it out here and made a go of it.
And when you got here, did you already have tons of contacts and you knew everybody? You was ready to rock and roll, or what's going on?
Nothing. I knew nobody, and the people I did know didn't really know much either. It wasn't like the handful of people I knew were already really plugged in and doing a lot, in the music scene. Some of them were in bands, some of them working other jobs while they're pursuing their music careers. But it was a real struggle to get off the ground. I think I spent the first at least 6 months looking for a job, and really trying to find something, anything, not even just in music, but anything. That was a struggle. That was something that I wish I had maybe tried to make a little bit more inroads before I got here. And over the years, I've had some interns from USC and UCLA, but also Berkeley, who have come out for the summer and interned. And I think that was great because they got to be out here, get some experience, make some connections. And that's kind of a big thing because when you get here, it's hard to land on your feet
Yes, sir.
in terms of a job. So, anything you can do to get a leg up before you get here is better.
Yeah, and not to personalize it too much, but we're in the same boat. Didn't know anybody. I had no connections when I got here as well. And I tell you what, did you also suffer from the "wow, this is a big place" syndrome when you got here?
Not so much because I grew up in New York and then I lived in Boston for 4 years. So I was very much used to big city vibe and I liked I lived in Hollywood. I get in the car and drive down to PCH and go to the beach. I loved doing that, exploring and really seeing what the city had. But the interesting thing that I was hit with was like, what are all these people doing at the beach at 2 p.m. on a Sunday? Does anybody work or what happens here? And
Yeah,
that was the realization.
where does everybody get all this money?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, I'm from small town middle America, so it was. I guess I had the opposite experience. Coming here was like, my gosh, this one city is as big as like the population of my state. I think.
Right. Was it a bit overwhelming?
Um, the traffic was just incredibly new to me,
Yeah.
and learning that in LA, it's not miles are irrelevant, and everything is done in time.
Yeah.
How long does it take you to get there? Oh, it's 2 miles. No, it's 3.5 hours, man.
Right.
Okay, so we're talking about coming to LA. You did not have any connections, nor did I. So how did you get started? Like, how did you get into something, and what was that something?
So through the Berkeley LA alumni chapter, you kind of sign up and they send out emails and some of them have job listings or leads or networking events, which they still do. And through that, I got a job at a music library in Santa Clarita called Scorekeepers,
Oh, very cool.
ran by this guy, Vaughn Johnson, great guy. And so I didn't even know what a music library was.
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those things where I learned just enough at Berkeley to convince him during the interview that I could do this job. And so I got hired and I worked there, and it was cool because I learned a lot of the ins and outs of the library world in terms of like what metadata is and how to do it, and how to tag things and name things and organize them for use, and started to get into a music supervision aspect because he had a couple shows he worked on, reality, documentary, type shows, and we would pull stuff from the library and cut it in and place it, and send it off, and anything they liked stayed, and anything they didn't, we would write a replacement for whatever the temp was.
Yeah.
And so that was, a little best of both worlds, really working the library catalog aspect and getting into the composing aspect a little bit as well.
And how long were you at Scorekeepers?
So I was there about, I want to say 8, 10 months, close to a year.
Yeah.
And it was great, but, it was, to his credit, he kind of set it up. He kept a really regular schedule. He didn't overtax himself. We weren't doing 100 hours a week. It's more like 20, maybe 30 hours a week. And that started to just not be sustainable for me financially.
Yeah.
So started looking other places. And again, through the Berkeley alumni chapter, I found Select Tracks, which now is part of the BMG production music, umbrella, but at the time was just an independent catalog.
Yeah.
And the owner, one of the owner and founder, Stephen Stern, was also a Berkeley guy. So I contacted with him through the network, and I went and interviewed with them. And I walked into their studio, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is like a legit, studio."
Yeah.
It was, used to be the Eagle Studio and Hans Zimmer Studio, and then it was J.R. Rodham's studio when we left. So it was like a real facility, and it was just really exciting to be there. And so then I transitioned over there, and doing a lot of the same things. That's those skills that I learned at Scorekeepers helped me get that job at Select Tracks, because I knew metadata and sample rates and organization, and I started doing 30 and 60-second cut downs for them,
Right.
and doing music searches. It was kind of a progression, and as I picked up more skills along the way, I could kind of leap to the next opportunity.
I'm interested in a couple of things. So I also wrote for Scorekeepers for a couple of years. Great library, great people.
A lot of people. I mean, I
Yeah.
still am in touch with different composers that I remember were in that catalog way back
Yeah.
when.
I know, isn't that funny? So such great people. And then help me understand this, because I could be wrong, but is Select Tracks affiliated somehow with Liquid Cinema? Are they the same, or is this completely separate?
No, separate.
Okay, separate. Because for some reason I feel like I've written for Select Tracks and Liquid Cinema as well, and they're somehow connected. But I guess I'm just mistaken. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so you're working at Select Tracks, doing that thing. How do you get to BMG?
So around 2008, the bigger music publishers were acquiring a music library. Everybody kind of had to have a music library division.
Yeah.
And so we were acquired by Bug Music, who, while not a major, they were a pretty good sized publisher at the time. And so we came on board with Bug Music. And then it was very much business as usual. They let us continue to run the operation how we were, but they also had this vintage Valentino music library that they didn't know what to do with. And they had acquired it because it had this one song from Walter Murphy, A Fifth of Beethoven, from Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. So they said, "Hey, we acquired this catalog. We have this one track that we got it for, but here's another 5,000 tracks. Can you do something with it?"
Wow.
So we rebranded it, repurposed it, re-released it, and it's done quite well for us because it's a very interesting, authentically vintage and unique catalog.
Yeah.
With a real emphasis on the 70s. And so that happened. And then, we're with Bug for a while. And then around 2011, BMG acquired Bug Music. And so we've just kind of come along for the ride. But what's been nice is, when we came on board with BMG, they took a real interest in production music. And they realized it was a fast growing sector and there was a lot of potential for growth there. And they started investing in acquiring of catalogs, in the production of the music we were creating, and so that helped us to kind of grow rather quickly.
Wow. And so, and then how did you go from being acquired to senior director of production at BMG?
Well, around right around the time of the BMG acquisition, Stephen Stern, who sadly passed away a few years ago, but one of the founders of Select Tracks that I worked with, and who was really, sort of mentor, helping me learn the business and composing. Um, he decided to leave. He went over to APM, and so when he left, I moved into his position as the head producer for the catalog, and subsequently got to take on a lot more writing roles as well.
Yeah, very cool. And let's talk a little bit about some of those projects. I want to dig into what it is you do on a day to day. Well, I guess on a normal day to day when the world opens back up and you're back in your sweet office, right?
Sure, yeah, but not much has changed. I've always kind of had a minimal mobile sort of setup, and
Yeah.
so luckily that was kind of easy to transfer to a home setup.
So, what can you paint a picture for anyone and everyone who's listening? Like, what is a day in the life for you, or maybe even a week in the life?
Sure, yeah. Um, you know, there's a lot of, I'd say it's probably 70, 75% of production, which is anything from building briefs, sending out to composers, giving feedback and critique on mixes, arrangement, um, uh, facilitating mixing and mastering, or hands-on mixing and mastering, maybe doing some additional production on some tracks that need to be punched up a little bit. Um, all things production that take our releases from A to Z and through release, which includes, a certain amount of kind of metadata and logistical stuff that needs to happen on my end, before I can pass it off to the next member of the team, who's then going to take it through the process of release. So that's a large portion of my day. Um, overseeing the production department. There's also other things that get involved, like budgets, and just A&R review, whether it's composers or artist stuff. And then a small portion is going to be composing and more hands-on producing, for either working with another composer or just stuff that I'm working on for the catalog.
How do you find composers and artists?
So, through the years, we've worked with many different composers and artists, and so the roster has continued to grow. And then as we acquired other catalogs, let's say X-Ray Dog or Music Beyond, or Immediate Music and One Revolution, the roster grows and grows. But we still get a lot of submissions, cold submissions, which we generally go through all of, because it's like 1 in 20 is going to be like, wow, this is a great composer. This is somebody that we should keep an eye on, see if we can find an opportunity to work with. Some of it comes by recommendation. Maybe an existing composer says, hey, check out my buddy's work. What do you think? Or even a client might say, hey, this is a composer we work with a lot. I thought you guys might be a good fit. Would you meet with them or talk with them or check out their music? So it comes from a variety of sources.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And you hinted a little bit at some of your personal projects. Can we talk about some of the stuff that you have worked on as a composer?
Sure, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about some of the. So I'm doing a little internet snooping here. So while we're chatting, I'm cyber hacker to the top degree here. Typical hacker action, and you've worked on some cool stuff. Tell me about this Ministry of Evil. Tell me about this Jonestown Terror in the Jungle stuff.
Sure, yeah. So Ministry of Evil was a really cool 4-part documentary series that we were asked to score. Yoav Goran from Immediate Music and myself co-scored it, and we had a couple other composers contribute additional music. And it was a really interesting documentary about a religious cult that operated here in the 70s, I believe, in California, in Los Angeles specifically, and also a little bit in Arkansas. And in fact, they still have a facility up in Canyon Country somewhere up in that area. And it was just a really great experience. It was so much fun to work on. I mean, going back to the Berkeley thing, that's kind of why I got into this, is I wanted to score films and TV. So it was a great experience. And then through that, the same production company, I believe, worked on the Jonestown Terror in the Jungle, and they were looking for a main title theme. And so they asked us if we would do some demos, and they did. And luckily, mine got chosen, which was great, because I think that's the first main title theme I've done.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Congrats on that. Both of those guys, with Tony Alamo and Jim Jones, like they're kind of some interesting figures, man. Let me tell you.
Yeah. It was a fun project to work on because it was like type of thing which is always good. I'm watching it, we're scoring it, and then I found myself getting lost in the scene and like, oh wait, I need to be figuring out what music is going to go over this or under this. So that was a good sign that the content, which is really engaging, was really interesting.
How did you how did you balance your day to day work and then all this composing work? Were you like, fill me in on that whole scheduling?
That actually was a very difficult time because
Yeah,
while I was doing the scoring, I still had to maintain my day to day at BMG as a producer, working for the catalog. So, not every day, but some days kind of started at like 5 a.m.,
oof,
right until about, 9, head into the office, work from 10 to 6, and maybe then write from like 6 to 7 or 8 at the office, go home, dinner with the family, put everybody to bed, and then work from maybe 11 to 1, you know, and just kind of squeezing in time where I can here and there. If I can get a really good cue done or started between 11 and 1, I'll be good for tomorrow morning when I get up and try and finish it off.
yeah,
But I mean, having worked on some other films, it just seems that's the process. You're working 15 and 18-hour days, for, the better part of 6 or 8 weeks. And that going into it, you're going to, have to buckle down and not get a lot of sleep and work, being a bit of a zombie, but it's part of the gig. It's what you sign up for.
yeah. It is definitely part of the gig. I'm curious. Do you find yourself more creative in the mornings or in the evenings?
I think in the mornings, I just feel fresher.
Yeah,
By the end of the day, there's a little bit of burnout. So, maybe at the end of the day, if I'm doing something late like that, I might be working more on, maybe I'm setting up a few sessions that I'm going to really dive into the next day and mapping out my tempos and pulling my sounds and doing not the heavy lifting writing part of it,
right.
or maybe doing some cue conforms or things that are not quite as, trying to really squeeze out all the creativity. Because at
Yeah,
that point, you're kind of drained, at the end of the day.
you are touching on a tip that I often give myself, which is, um, you're only going to have so much bandwidth for that creativity on demand, and
Yeah.
then when that candle or that flame kind of starts to extinguish, I switch right over to all the technical stuff. And what else can I do to keep this process moving forward that really is not creative, but it's all technical, right?
Right. You're going to have to do it at some point anyway. So why not do it when you'll have the capacity to do it, but maybe not the capacity to do something quite as creative as sketching out a whole new cue.
How long did it take to like each one of these miniseries? Like, how long did that take? A couple weeks, couple days?
Well, we worked over the course of, I want to say it was like 3 months or so, but it wasn't constant. It was like we would get an episode on Monday, and they'd want basically all the music by like Friday,
Yeah,
and then we'd come back to it. Like they'd work with it for a couple weeks, and then they'd come back to it and give us some notes, and we go back in and have another couple days to do some revisions. And while we were waiting for those notes, we might be working on revisions of a previous episode. So it was, when we would get music, it would be crunch time, or when we get video, it would be crunch time to do music. We'd have a couple days to knock out 45 minutes of music. This was wall to wall music, for 45, 44-minute episodes. So, so that part of it was the crunch. That was the start at 5 a.m., finish at 1 a.m. sort of days.
yeah.
But, there was parts in between where we were just kind of waiting for feedback for, a week or something like that. And just, that's when, okay, let me shift gears and catch up on all the production stuff or whatever other stuff that may have been taking a little bit of a backseat.
Now, is to not switch gears too much, but is this my imagination, or haven't we chatted in the past where you were flying somewhere to produce music in different parts of the country? I mean, don't you travel around a bit when you're working with artists too? Is that correct?
I do, yeah. So I've got, um, getting back to Select Track's, kind of inception, both the founders, Steven, Stern and Stuart Hart, were both from Baltimore.
Yeah.
Stuart stayed there and Steven moved out here, and they kind of ran the company jointly. and each had yin yang, different strengths, which always works well usually. Um, and so we have a really strong roster of writers that are in the Baltimore area, New York, Philly, East Coast. So I've got a great jazz group that I work with out there, and a studio, and an engineer, and like a team. And we do some of our vintage jazz, vintage rock and roll, soul records, kind of things that the Select Trek song catalog got known for, which is doing really authentic vintage music, really well written, produced tracks. So I do that. We do orchestral trailer sessions, sometimes different parts of the world. Right now, it's kind of on hold. We can't really travel anywhere, but that's part of it too. When we can work in town, doing trailer stuff, we love to. And sometimes we do it other places. Just if it's not feasible to do it in town.
Yeah, and speaking about that authentic sound, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have also won some Mark Awards for these tracks, correct?
Yeah, we won the last year. I think we won best maybe jazz song for one
So
of the
cool.
tracks that we did with that Baltimore group, and the album also won best art, which
Yeah,
was
how
great.
cool is that?
And we I think we won best hip hop song, which was great.
Totally different genre.
Yeah, totally different. And best trailer cue. So really hitting all these different things, and those are kind of the two main things that I'm working on is the trailer side, working with the X-Ray Dog catalog, producing that, and then also on the more contemporary songs, pop, urban, and rock, as well as doing some of the more specific vintage stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely a fascinating thing. And for anyone listening and everyone listening who is not aware of the Mark Award, when you work for or work in music for media, production music, that's like our prestigious award. Wouldn't you agree? That's like our big award, man.
That is, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's a great, it's a great thing that the PMA does to kind of just showcase and recognize just some of the outstanding music and artwork and production and all the different things that happen. A lot goes into to a lot of these albums, a lot of these songs, and you know, I think that if somebody didn't know better and you put a great piece of production music up against a great piece of commercial music and you didn't tell them anything about either one, it'd be easy to mistake one for the other because the level and the quality of production music has gotten so high. And you even have well-known commercial artists working in the production music field, here and there that, you know, it's great to have some recognition for all the efforts that people are putting into it.
No, and you're touching on a topic I'd like to chat about just a little bit, which is in the past, production music had some negative connotations, right? Canned music or stock music, all this kind of stuff. But that's really not the case today, is it?
No, I mean, there certainly was a stigma, and I think it exists a little bit today to people who are not that familiar with it.
Sure.
That it is a stock canned music, like you said,
Yeah.
where people just do knockoffs, and it's just simple underscore things that are not very interesting, and I think nothing can be farther from the truth at this
Yeah.
point. It's amazing music. You've got top notch talent. You've got Emmy winning composers, creating library music. You've got Grammy winning producers and writers and platinum selling, artists who are doing production music. So it's really branched out, and those artists have really taken notice and said, "Oh, this is a cool thing that I could be a part of." Sure, over here I'll be doing my thing where I'm trying to make platinum records, and over here I could be doing something where it's another creative outlet, it's another revenue stream, and I could be making music for a sync only purpose.
My, you're right on the money. Speaking about the highest of heights and quality, we were fortunate enough to take home a Mark Award last year for best criminal and investigatory production music. My wife likes to joke about the design of the Mark Award. It's one of the coolest looking awards, but man, it's dangerous looking, right?
It is. It is. It
It's
can be a weapon.
it's a security system in our studio now, and no joke at the awards show. mine has a little burr on it, and it actually cut my wife's finger. No joke.
Really?
So I was like, wow, nothing is more crimey and murderous than this board, and I just love that.
Your
So,
marker got some blood on it.
it's got some blood on it, man, and I'm going to leave it on there. Let's, you've been warned. If you come to the studio, you're going to get clobbered with this thing.
It's very fitting for CrimeSonics.
So speaking of studio, well, before we talk about that, how did you and I meet? How in the world did we link up? Because genuinely, I don't remember how we met.
I think I was thinking about this,
Yeah.
as we were kind of discussing, getting together and talking.
Yeah.
I think Jen Bauer,
Oh yes. Okay, keep going. Keep going.
who worked at BMG at the time, introduced. She's got to meet my friend Dan. He's a great guy, really talented composer. So she sent me some of your stuff, and I listened. I'm like, yeah, this stuff's great. And I think what happened, as happens often, is I'll hear a composer's stuff, and I'm like, this is really good. I don't necessarily have a project right now where I'd say jump in immediately, but I'm gonna, space bank that. I'm gonna remember this person, so when a project does come up, which eventually it did, and I reached out. That's great because, and I've heard you talk about this with other, producers and composers on your podcast, which is, a lot of people can do various things and do them well, but usually there's a handful of things that people do expertly, and that's what we try and have composers do, and that's where I think we've figured out how to work together on that side of things. Is there's some of those things that you just are do so well, and so when those projects come up, it's like, hey, do you want to do some tracks? Although now I think you might be a little too busy between CrimeSonics and your other ventures.
It's funny. And how I met Jen was, listen, I had gone to an estate sale and I had bought a trunk, this old, ratty, but vintagey and cool, like suitcase trunk, right? Bought it, had it in my garage for a year. And then one day I put it up on Facebook and she saw it and she wanted it. And that's how we met. Isn't that crazy?
Amazing.
So so I'm thinking about how, like, if you walk back, like, CrimeSonics has a wonderful partnership with BMG. Brad and I worked together great. All happened because I met Jen, and that all happened because I sold her. No, I gave her a trunk. I gave it to her, and the trunk came from an estate sale one morning. That's bizarre, isn't it?
It's amazing how the connections are made, and then how long they last, and what else comes from those things.
Yeah, it's wild. And so, to everyone listening, just be open to go to estate sales and buy junk and post things on Facebook. I think it's important, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, Brett, so we alluded to this a little bit before. So, does B.M.G have a studio somewhere in Los Angeles? Do you guys have access to a big studio? What's going on? Fill me in.
Sure. Yeah, we actually have a smaller size studio in the BMG LA offices. So
very cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's not like a huge commercial facility. It's got an ISO booth and a control room, some choice gear, microphones. It's great for cutting vocals, guitars, individual instruments. We do a lot of mastering in there. We've got a good mastering setup. And we've cut some bigger things, with kind of a full band. But, for that, usually we go to a bigger facility somewhere offsite.
I want to geek out on the microphones for a second. What do you guys got in there? I'm a big mic nerd.
Okay, cool. Well, it's there's no like 251s or anything like that, but we've got the One Audio 87,
yeah,
Neumann TLM 103, Paracam 84s, SM7B. Never go wrong with that.
Oh yeah.
I've actually gotten the Slate Digital, the modeling mics, both the large diaphragm and the small diaphragms.
Yeah, what's going on with those?
Those are cool, man. They're really interesting. You get a lot of tone out of, you get a lot of bang for your buck. You get a lot of different vocal sound options, and it's really interesting. And it's cool because you can record it, and then after the fact, you can then go change mic models. If maybe you record it, you go like, I don't think the 47's working on this voice. Let me try this 251, or whatever sort of thing you want to try. So I'm a big fan of it. I use it on a lot of things, but not on everything. Some things you just want to go with more of a classic 87 sound, or you want an SM70 for a rock vocal or whatever it is. So Other than that, we've got a Royer ribbon.
I was just
Um,
going to ask if you had a ribbon mic.
we do, yes. I've done some horns in there,
Yeah.
and so both kind of on more the rock horn section as well as some mariachi and banda and stuff like that. So definitely need a couple ribbons around for that. I don't know if I'm forgetting anything else. I've got a bullet mic in there. A little
Oh yeah.
handheld bullet mic for whatever sort of utility thing you want to use it for. A couple other little things here and there, but those are the highlights of it anyway.
I have a ribbon mic story. I got you guys got the 121 or what do you got in there?
R10.
R10. So I got a 121. Uh, totally did what you're not supposed to do, and I left the phantom power on. Right,
Oh, that's a rough
blew
one.
the ribbon. I'm like, ah, man, I gotta get this thing fixed because I love this mic. And so I'm like, where is this Royer company? And then I realized they're right here in Burbank.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is brilliant.
Huh.
So I get on the phone, call them up. They're like, yeah, dude, just bring it down. We'll slap a new ribbon in there. No big deal. So I go down there, drop the mic off. It's there a couple days. I come to pick it up. When I come back, there's this older gentleman hanging out in the front, right? And I said, yeah, I'm here to pick up my mic. And then I was like, I got some questions about these ribbon mics. This thing sounds so cool. Is there anyone here that can tell me all about this mic? And this old guy starts telling me everything about this 121. And I had no idea. I was sitting there talking to the guy who invented this mic, right?
Right.
I can't remember. I can't. It's David Royer. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. But talk about the nicest people and the nicest guy to sit there and chat. I mean, for like 40 minutes on this microphone. Very cool, man.
That's great. It's always great when you meet somebody who's kind of at that level and
Yeah.
that success, and they couldn't be more humble
Oh,
and accommodating and just passing off some info.
I know. So cool. And I think they even won a technical Grammy for that mic or something. So
It's pretty popular mic, yeah.
yeah, cool stuff ever. Okay, let's switch gears as we are getting close to wrapping this guy up. I want to. I'm thinking about the up and comer, the newbie, maybe even someone who's been in the industry for a while. They're not getting the traction that they want. They're trying to traverse the sonic territories of production music and things. What are some tips maybe that you can throw out to someone looking to connect and get started? Pitfalls, tips, like what career advice? Anything goes.
Sure, yeah. I think in terms of just connecting with somebody, writing an email that is not too long, but personally addressed to them. If I get just stock emails that went to 200 people, I'm like,
Yeah,
what am I going to do with this? And so, somebody sends me an email. They've taken maybe a little bit of time to check out our company and know what we do.
yeah,
So they know that if they want to send us some tracks, maybe they tailor those to the sound of things we do. Hey, I see you guys do a lot of trailer music. I've been doing a lot of trailer music. Please check these out. Or I do indie rock, and I see you guys do a lot of indie rock records in your song catalog. Please check these out. And really knowing who you're pitching yourself to. You don't want to pitch jazz tracks to a trailer company.
yeah,
So that's part of it, and just being cool, being a little patient. All of the companies get a lot of submissions, and we don't get to them all quickly. In fact, most of them it takes a little while to get to. So there's some time between when we get something and when we'll get a chance to listen to it,
yeah,
and then yeah, going back to what you're pitching, trying to be a problem solver. Is there something you're looking for right now? Is there a particular need that you have for your catalog? Because that's what I'm always basically what we're producing. We've got a lot of music right now, so the things that we're producing are things where we find some small holes in our catalog. We could use more of this right now. We need some new this, or this is a new trend coming up that we need to get some tracks done in the style of. So being able to solve problems for somebody is helpful, and then having your own sound, I think, too, is,
yeah,
is is big, because especially starting out, a lot of us, myself included, you're hearing great music and then you're just trying to emulate it, right? Oh, I love this track. Let me try and write something just like that. But you want to be doing your version of that. You don't want to be regurgitating somebody else's sound. You want to do something that is unique to you and your voice and has a sound. There's a lot of composers that we work with, and if nobody told me who wrote it and they sent it to me, I'd know. Like, oh, this is a Josh track. This is an Eric track. This is,
Yeah.
and so, that's something that is going to make you stand out from the pack of people that are sending in demos along with yours. And somebody hears, hey, this guy's a really good composer, and they also have a really cool sound.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any like groups or affiliations or organizations that you would recommend that you think are a great value to someone new getting into the game?
Um, hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm not the best networker. I should be better at it, but I try. Like I said, Berkeley has an alumni chapter here that I'm a part of, and they have networking events. I think kind of quarterly. Not right now, of course, but
Sure.
so I try and hit those. And there's some other, depending on what your thing is. I know there's quite a few trailer kind of events and meetups and Facebook groups. There's a lot of Facebook groups going on right now. There's some sync oriented ones. There's composer oriented ones, and then even on a more niche level, trailer ones and more general production music ones. So I think finding some of those and then also trying to network, off of your current network. I meet composers through the composers I already know. Like I said, somebody might say, "Hey, this is a composer friend of mine I went to school with, or that I've written some tracks with. Can you check out their stuff?" And so, it's not the easiest to network, at least for myself, I find. But finding different avenues, whether it's through an alumni network, through a Facebook network, LinkedIn has some stuff as well, and just kind of seeking out those different areas and finding the ones that pertain to you as well.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too, like, I know years ago I attended an ASCAP expo. That was pretty fun.
Yeah,
Uh,
PMA. I mean, the PMC is a great networking event. I meet a lot of
EMC.
composers there, a lot of catalog owners, and different things there. So that's if you're serious about production music, that's kind of the go-to event I think of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I actually don't know, but does BMI do any events or any? I don't know if they do
Not that I
anything.
know of, not like the ASCAP Expo, not
Yeah.
that I know of. I think they do some events. If you go to their website, probably there's something.
Yeah, you're right. And then they do offer like a BMI 101, which is kind of like performing rights organization info.
Yeah,
I think that's monthly or quarterly too. And it's free, so that's something that anyone listening can sign up for, and you attend it in the office in Los Angeles.
yeah, and there's also other smaller things like some I see sometimes whether it's a composer or someone doing like kind of small little master classes or something like
Yeah,
that. I'm a big fan of continued education, always trying to learn something.
absolutely.
Whether it's on YouTube or Pure Mix or Slate Academy or all these different there's so many resources to learn different skills in production, but sometimes the in-person things is like you're there in a room with like-minded people, often at a similar level,
Yeah,
and that could be an interesting networking opportunity as well.
yeah. I remember. I can't remember the event, but I had gotten tickets to something, and I walk in, and Chris Lord Alge's in there talking about mixing, and Tony Maserati was there like an hour later. It was some event down in Los Angeles, and it's just like, wow, right? You can really find this stuff, and then they always video this kind of stuff usually and put it up
Yeah.
on the internet. So there's a book or something titled, like everything is figure outable, and YouTube University. I mean, at this stage of the game, this day and age, if there is a skill that you don't have and you want it, I mean, it's kind of on you, right? You can find the information out there.
There's so much there. There's like Masterclass is another one that
Absolutely.
I'm just going to watch 3 hours of content from Hans Zimmer or Danny Elfman explaining their entire thought process of composing. But
Yeah, amazing.
interesting. It's not going to make me Hans Zimmer or Danny Elfman, but I'm certainly going to get a few nuggets of information that I'm going to be able to use in my workflow.
Yeah, exactly, man. I tell you what, that on that note, is there any last little parting sentiment you would give that person who's just moving to LA right now after this virus is over. What's the first thing they should do now they're in town? What do you wish someone told you?
Oh man. Well,
The big one.
um, other than write every day if you want to be a composer, I think something else I've heard echoed on this podcast, which is be a good hang. You know,
Yeah, you're right. Be a good hang, man.
there's so many composers and producers and artists and talented people that sometimes the difference between getting the gig or working with somebody is just their attitude, and that they're somebody that I could sit in a room for 12 hours with while we're trying to knock out a track that's got to be over to a client at 9 a.m. the next day. So just being easygoing, and being somebody that you can sit in a room with for a long time and get along with and share ideas with, and just be somebody that can be easygoing and not difficult to work with.
Man, that is awesome advice. Yes, be a good hang. Brad Marrapodi, director of all the cool stuff at BMG, man. Hey, thank you for taking an hour out of your day to chat with me, brother. I really appreciate it.
Dan Brown, thank you so much.